Sudanese novel History and Development الطيب صالح 1929-2009 Part 3. Welcome to the third episode of our documentary series on the renowned Sudanese novelist Al-Tayyib Salih. I'm so delighted the audience having traveling together across time with his literary world and texts. Tayyib Salih religiosity was widely praised by all who knew him. Among his fellow Sudanese, Arabs and people of the other nationalities around the world, owing to his qualities of humility, simplicity, moderation, asceticism and tolerance that characterize his faith. His Islam religious outlook represented an authentic model of popular Sudanese Islam. Simple, tolerant, and balanced. An Islam that celebrates diversity as an inherent feature of Sudanese society and knows neither Christian nor hatred, as he himself expressed on more than one occasion. So the audience in the following part of our encounter with him, we seek to trace the profound impact of this popular Sufi-inspired religiosity on his writings and novels, by examining his relationship with Sufism and by exploring their intellectual and spiritual presence within his creative world.
وسول اليدين والحواجب حين أبرزوا دام يا خاطبي ويا أرزقه والأجل له رتبي يو كان يكون سعيد ومحاسبي.
So the audience, it is my great pleasure once again welcoming you in our third encounter with our renowned Sudanese novelist Al-Tayyib Salih. We meet him in our third encounter, backing again to his biography. And since we have introduced him in our first encounter, introducing his biography, parts of biography in fact, now in this episode I would like further sharing part of other sides of his personality, with a special reference to his beliefs and that sort and part of Islam that he is admired of and attracted to. So this will be part of our discussion, part of our presentation. From another side, also I would like to share parts of the views of those who knew him in close. And just I would like to quote part of the prominent international and Sudanese figures who have their own views towards his character and his personality as a simple Sudanese Muslim and writer. So to share all these ideas and points, I will depend on interviews that already have been carried out with him while he is reflecting his ideas in terms of the spread of Islam from a side in Sudan. At the very same time, the role that have been played by Sufism in the country, with a special reference and focus on the coexistence and their peaceful doctrine that they have followed to consolidate Islam and to spread its teaching in the country.
كان طال الجوف سيد النبي يا أمان الخوف انت يا النبي ترجب الملهوف انت يا النبي درة العجوف لك يا النبي الجيوش إلوف انت يا النبي نبيت بالكفوف انت يا النبي.
However, in our following part of our encounter with him, we seek to trace the profound impact of this popular Sufi-inspired religiosity on his writings and novels, by examining his relationship with Sufism and by exploring their intellectual and spiritual presence within his creative world. And in this regard, just I would like to start with an interview that have been conducted with him on the Blue Nile, in which he spoke at length about Sufism and the peaceful spirit of Islam through Sufi men. He emphasized that he himself come from a Sufi family. So initially and from the outset, Tayyib Salih stressed upon the idea that he himself comes from a Sufi family, and that Sufism in Sudan represents a cultural and spiritual heritage that should have been perceived, as it helped bind society together and shield it from discord and conflict. Among his remarks, we may quote the following. So, the audience, I would like to share parts of the remarks that our novelist Al-Tayyib Salih has reflected throughout interview channel on Blue Nile channel in Sudan. To quote him, all of northern Sudan is deeply imbued with the Sufi sensibility. It is well known that we received Islam differently from many other Islamic countries. Islam did not come to us through wars, nor was it imposed by the sword, as happened in regions such as the Levant and Egypt. Rather, Islam entered our land gradually over a long period of time, and we absorbed it gently in this way.
يا الله حل قائد المكربي فوق الجهان يقبقبي زادي والبدار فوق وأحقبي يا وزادي والبدار فوق وأحقبي واترك العقاب له وحربي وابرل الخبير دي مساربي معانا كم زمال طارنا يضربي امشي واشوف الكواكب وافضل الفروق.
With his family roots with Sufism, he stated, I myself belong to a family that also has strong roots in Sufism. Moreover, I believe that one of the most beautiful aspects of Islam is Sufism. As we understood and live it in Sudan, Sufism represents the very spirit of Islam. The speech is still for him. I have always said that if Islam is ever to spread in Europe and America, it will do so through Sufism, not through rigid doctrinal or ideological approaches. Therefore, if you permit me to say so, I believe that in Sudan we have committed a very serious mistake in recent years by failing to recognize the greatness of the heritage we possess, a pure Islam. Instead, people came to us claiming to bring Islam anew, even though the versions they brought only stirred resentment and conflict. Sufism was a beautiful fabric that peacefully bound the entire country together. What was required of us was simply to perceive it. So the audience, this is part of the interviews, part of the interview that have been conducted with him in Blue Nile channel. I quoted the areas that already serve our purpose behind the performance and the presentation of our episode in our third encounter with the Al-Tayyib Salih. Since, as I told, I tried to do in this episode, which it is the third one, is to provide more points, more ideas about his personality, having his biography in its second part. And what is behind all of this is to prepare ourselves to his literary texts, in which we try to experience, as I told, the influence, the impact of religion from one side and Sufism from another side.
بالأشراف يا محمد سد الأمة كاف يا محمد نورك الرفراف يا محمد ربك الرآف يا محمد تأجيب اليخاف يا
Furthermore, the audience, the speech of our prominent Sudanese novelist Al-Tayyib Salih about his earliest education, which in fact has taken the form of religious education, and his speech on his upbringing in terms of faith and religion. Meanwhile, his speech on the impact of press singers in the country, which at the very same time have inspired him, concluding with the part and sort and form of Islam that have attracted him. All these issues were part of a lengthy interview in form of broadcasting, and it has been carried out in British media, entitled Tayyib Salih on Growing Up in the Sudan and Season of Migration to the North. So this interview is available on Spotify.com. The interview, he had been asked about his growing up, whether he was a religious person and the kind of Islam that he practiced when he grew up. Is it more spiritual and mystical, not ideological or fanatical? So the answer for this question, and in fact these two questions, Tayyib Salih answered with affirmative, that he grew up in a society that the form of Islam distinguish it is spiritual and mystical, not ideological or fanatical. While on the question whether he grew up religious, he answered no, while he went on elaborating and said, when I mean learning, I went to what we call the Kutab. The Kutab is a school where you learn the rudiments of Quran and reading, writing and religion. It was the only school available actually, but there is no indoctrination. I don't remember being forcefully indoctrinated by the religion. And the presenter asked him the question, were inclined with it? Was it a source of inspiration for you? A shaping influence, do you think? So for answering this question, he said, of course, no doubt. I mean, no. Of course, no doubt. I mean, I love the Quran, even before I understood fully what it meant. Because Quran is the reservoir, the essence of the Arabic language. And nobody can claim to know Arabic without knowing the Quran. I met many Arab Christians who love the Quran as a language. So I was attracted to that from the very beginning. And then the chanting, sometimes on weddings, he is referring here to praise singers, madih. The chanting sometimes on weddings, and we still do in the Sudan. We have a group of singers who chant the praises of the Prophet. They go from village to village, and they think that in lovely choral voices, and the whole village comes out and listen. I also love that.
دموع شوق وهردة ضينا وولا الجمال حدا حقلة القصير نواق وردة طلق الحمول كان من بدا يسري في الشروق ربي هاودا
Which is still for الطيب صالح. The essence of things, if I may say, got through to me without any undue harshness or compulsion. So the presenter asked him, can you love on that when you, the essence? Well, there it is. I mean, one just absorbed through a kind of, if I may use the word, symbiotic process, the essence of the existence of the people on this part of the earth. And I think I had the sense of that happening, my own family, other families, and so on. And that what interested me. He went further to inform and to tell about the part of Islam that attracts him. So, to quote him, until now, the part of Islam which attracts me is mysticism. The great mystics in Islam, of course, are great poets, you know, like Al-Attar, the Persian, or Ibn Arabi, the Andalusian. These people, I think, express the essence of the religion as a kind of search of humanity for the truth, whatever it is.
الرسول تكفي للعذاب يقبل الكريم بها سعده صلى وسلام محمد خاتم الكرام سيدي
Concern الطيب Salih has his own view on the impact and influence of the prophetic madih in Sudan and its great role in the dissemination of the Prophet Sira. So to quote him, I don't think that when in the Sudan visiting these places, he pointing out here to Mecca and Medina, and Hajj al-Mahi never crosses his mind, particularly his poetry and the poems of those peers of him. For their poetry make up our sentiment as children, holding on the rib-tops of our fathers and mothers to the circle of madih on nights. Before we know the reading and writing, nor being aware with life's matters, we knew the most honest and the trustworthy messengers per day, his growing up, his mission, and the types of the hardships that he had experienced while in Mecca, and then his migration to Medina, where the light of the message has shined so strong, so brightened. We knew his jihad and his companions' jihad. We knew them by their names, one after the one. The knowledge transfers to our prime hearts directly in the form of singing, full with love and passion.
فوق مطايا سر الليل لحجايا للمحبوب فوق مطايا سر الليل لحجايا للمحبوب.
You listen, the audience, I shared two interviews that have been conducted with Al-Tayyib Salih, in which he spoke about his beliefs. He spoke about the nature of Islam in the country. Meanwhile, he spoke further about his earliest religious education and the influence and impact of Kutab, which stand for the Quranic school, and the impact and the influence of the Holy Quran on him and on other personalities that he had met, Christians and non-Christian alike. And he focused the speech on the fact that he had met many Christians who have been influenced by the Quran as a language. From another hand, the audience, I would like to share, moreover, parts of the speech, parts of praising words that have been said on his honor. And here I would like to share the opinions of the late Sudanese diplomat and thinker, Dr. Mansour Khalid, on Al-Tayyib Salih. So to quote him, Tayyib Salih was a man of profound religious faith, committed to his Sunni tradition and its path. A pen carried his religiosity on his sleeve, or made a show of it. In this, he was much like the people of Sudan, who have long reconciled with their faith with their only lips. Still, the speech for Mansour Khalid, the peaceful coexistence among such people represents religious tolerance at its highest level. Religious tolerance and ease in matters of belief is a legacy planted in us by our fathers and grandfathers before we ever found our way to the printed books. Our tools of learning in those days were the wooden tablet and i'mar, ink made from the soot of cooking pots, whose sharp scent we inhaled with delight, unaware whether we were breathing in carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide along with it. So as you listen, the audience, the late diplomat, the thinker, Dr. Mansour Khalid, described Tayyib Salih as a man of a profound religious faith. And no doubt, the profound of his faith, his religious faith, has manifested clearly in his literary texts.
يوم غازي في فضايا وأروى الزمايا يا ملك لكم دراية القصة جابر كفاية.
The Sufi dimension beyond the novelistic texts. The audience, moreover, I would like to quote and to share these views which had been expressed in an article, a published article by the noted Sudanese author and historian Ahmed Ibrahim Abu Shok, entitled أنماط التعبير الصوفي في روايات الطيب صالح, published article on 11 of April 2020, available at ontologia.com. The reference here is to the narrator himself, Tayyib Salih, as a person deeply imbued with Sufi teachings, both in conduct and in outlook. The behavioral dimension of this Sufi influence is embodied in the man's Gnostic values, which he sees honor in humanity, dignity in piety, and freedom in contentment. Thus, Tayyib Salih captivates you with his humanity before dazzling you with his talent. Accordingly, so I would like to remind the audience, just I'm quoting from the article as I told, written by Ahmed Ibrahim Abu Shok. Accordingly, the first part of this section addresses the human Sufi aspect embodied in Tayyib Salih personality. It then moves on to examine the Sufi dimension rooted in spiritual inspiration within his novelistic composition. His friend Muhammad ibn Isa is a former Moroccan diplomat and politician, a cultured figure, had been assumed the Ministry of Culture as well as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in his own country, Morocco. He is one of the closest intimate friends of Al-Tayyib Salih. So he has his own impression on Al-Tayyib Salih as a human, as a Sufi, as a writer. To quote him, a complete man who neither flatters nor dissimulates, content to the point of neglecting his own rights and entitlements. Everything about Tayyib is wrapped in modesty, asceticism, and self-effacement. A righteous sonnet, even without his turban, he speaks with you about anything except himself and his works. Still the speech for the late diplomat Muhammad bin Isa. We spoke many times by telephone between Washington and London while preparing for his tribute in Asila, something almost unbelievable. On every occasion, I felt that Tayyib Salih would evade the matter with innocence of a child and the shyness of a virgin. He never once accepted the idea of honoring him. No, my friend, by God, I don't deserve this honor. There are others who deserve it more. He would repeat whenever I raised the subject. Eventually, I felt that he truly did not wish to be honored and that he was genuinely incapable of refusing outright. I told him so candidly, and he admitted.
والله جيت واقف يعبل معايا بوالدي وجنايا بأجرى أني ونسايا والإخوان والصحبايا الإسلام جملة غاية أقول الكل كل في حماية للمحبوب فوق مطايا سرد لحيايا للمحبوب.
From the very same source and in the very same direction, here we have the views and the testimony of Dr. Qad al-Samman. So yes, I would like to share, as I have quoted from the article أنماط التعبير الصوفي في رواية الطيب صالح by Dr. Ahmed Ibrahim Abu Shok. When Qad al-Samman introduced الطيب صالح in a letter to Mufid Fawzi, she uses these sincere words. Because I know your voyages among writers and thinkers, and I know that you search their seas for shells and pearls. You will meet in Cairo an ebony force. You will meet in Cairo an ebony face that rarely appears at cocktail parties in embassies or at a television and radio forums. I wish you could persuade him to speak with you. He does not realize how creative he is. Tayyib Salih is humble like grass, and his laughter still carries that childlike innocence one usually finds at the depths of genius. Still the speech to Qad al-Samman. I know he may decline to speak with you, and I understand his motives. For he, like me, is among those who believe Goethe saying, "The world of art is vast, but our lives are short." Just as his writing is dazzling, so too is his personality through the humility and spontaneous simplicity with which he receives you. I believe that the screening reader will agree that these two selected testimonies, chosen from among thousands, are both comprehensive of what precedes them and sufficient to preclude what follows. Hence, we conclude our commentary on them with the well-known saying attributed to Asma bint Abdullah al-Uzriya, "There is no perfume after the bride."
حرم سروفو نعقب نطوفو سمح الصوفو يا رب نشوفو حرم سروفو نعقب نطوفو سمح الوصوفو يا رب نشوفو امين حرم سروفو
For the dimension of spiritual inspiration in the poetic novels of Al-Tayyib Salih, it is revealed in certain private conversations he confided to his friend Ustaz Raja al-Naqash, who conveyed a part of them in an article published in Al-Duha magazine. He wrote, "Tayyib, whom I consider honest and trustworthy, told me that certain passages of his stories would suddenly descend upon him at moments when he was not prepared to write. When these passages descended, he would respond to them as one responds to a sacred call, writing them down exactly as they were dedicated by the inspiration of the Spirit. These states, in Tayyib's case, resemble the states of Sufis and lovers of divine love. They pour light over many pages of Maryud and fill them with a beautiful spiritual fragrance." Ustaz Muhammad Khair Awadullah, who shared with Al-Tayyib a bond of gentle affection, commented on Raja al-Naqash testimony without directly referring to it, through an astonishing convergence of intuition hats, when he said, "Tayyib harbors a great secret within him. Even his talent is not an ordinary talent to be placed alongside others. It is an extraordinary talent, uncommon among human beings, extremely rare." There is no doubt that Muhammad Khair Awadullah intuition was a truthful one, reinforcing Raja al-Naqash testimony, just as it affirms the judgment of the ordinary reader who inhales the fragrance of the Sufi spirit wafting throughout all of the Tayyib Salih novels. This spirit appears whether in the Sufi terminology employed in the text, in the novelistic characters themselves, or in the narrated debates over the struggle between the inner and the outer, and in how these are woven into the fabric of human history.
بط مطهر قلب الرؤوف ويا بظا يظل الغيم رفوف ويا بلعن.
Among the passages that descended upon الطيب صالح suddenly, which he wrote exactly as they came to him, was that final passage of Maryud, when he awoke one morning to find it already speaking in his heart. The passage in which Maryum says to Maryud, "O Maryud, you are nothing. You are no one, O Maryud. You choose your grandfather and your grandfather chose you because both of you weigh heavier in the scales of this world. Your father outweighed both you and your grandfather on the scale of justice. You loved without weariness. You love without weariness, gave without hope of return, drank as the bear drinks, lived perpetually on a journey, and departed in haste. He dreamed the dreams of the weak, proficient himself from the sustenance of the poor, and when his soul tempted him toward glory, he rebuked it, and when life called to him, So dear audience, I would like to share the Arabic version of these lines in which, as we have descended upon الطيب Salih, and he informed with that the critic Raja al-Naqash. So I would like to share the Arabic lines of this translated version of the lines that have been descended upon him while he went on to write them, which is a part of Maryud, his noted novel. So to quote, يا مريود أنت لا شيء، أنت لا أحد يا مريود، إنك اخترت جدك وجدك اختارك لأنكما أرجح في موازين أهل الدنيا، وأبوك أرجح منك ومن جدك في ميزان العدل. لقد أحب بلا ملل وأعطى بلا أمل، وحسى كما يحسو الطائر، وأقام على سفر وفارغ على عجل، حلم أحلام الضعفاء وتزود من زاد الفقراء، وراودته نفسه على المجد فزجرها، ولما نادته الحياة. So the audience, just I have shared part of the reflection on the Sufi dimension on Tayyib Salih writings, as have been experienced are reflected by noted figures in the literary scene in the Arab world. So before going to end and to wrap up the episode, I would like to point out the sources that already I have consulted. The website is spotify.com. Interview with الطيب صالح on growing up in the Sudan and season of migration to the north. Another source, منصور خالد, his article الزين يغيب عن عرسه. محمد رضا نصر الله in his televised show هذا هو interviews الطيب صالح 1993. Another source, أحمد إبراهيم أبو الشوك, أنماط التعبير الصوفي في روايات الطيب صالح, published article on Al-Anthologia on 11 of April 2020. And finally, the reference book, The Impact of Sufism on Arts in Sudan, published book by Abdul Abdullah Salih, 2024. By this, the audience, I came to the end of the episode. Till seeing you in the next episode with الطيب صالح. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
تشرب أول ما حفاق وبمدح يطرب يوهو يمنا يا في سور وكوكب يا القب خضراء وناس مهبهب يا نوصل نزور في شفاعة نكتب حرم سروف ونعيمنا طوف سمح الوصوف يا رب نشوف حرم سروف نعقد نطوف هلال يا رب تقبل دعايا ليا وفي النوم منايا 200 هدية حرم سروف ونعقبنا طوف 50 جبايا هذا المزية يا 50 بفواقين يا مشان سوية يا 50 عواتينا ملاهرية يا 50 حمولينا بروقلية يا في جيبي أبقى 2000 وقية يا أنفق لله صبح وعشية يا بخوة معانا تبا أحمدية يا نوصل نواجي خير البرية يا إموت نعمة نعمة وإن جيت هنية حرم سروف نعيم طوف سمح الوصوف يا رب نشوفه حرم سروف نعقب نطوف هلال بختم صلاتي المقبول ثوابا وآلاف سلامي فائغ ترابا حرم سروف ونعقبنا طوف وبيع الجبا على الدنيا وتسابا يوم حدبنا لا يوم خرابا يوم بيع السواب يقرا الكتابا يوم للسيد هداها المحيابا يا سيد عكاش اقول مرحبا امين تنجينا بيها يوم العذاب يا نبر البراقة امين نمسك ركابا حرم سروف ونعيمنا طوف سمح الوصوف يا رب نشوف حرم سروف ونعيمنا طوف صلى الله على سيدنا محمد.